talk about the Druid in its current state in the game. So I've had about a week to play it up to this point. This is now Tuesday for those that don't know. Maybe you're looking at this at a later time. But I played the Druid. Tomorrow we're going to hopefully get a patch that may fix some of the Druid stuff. But the Druid came in a very, very poor state, in my opinion. So I've leveled it up to 18 here. And I just kind of want to go over what the Druid is, what it does. And I don't really want to go into a lot of detail on the Druid's abilities and stuff, because I think, like I said, there's probably going to be an update tomorrow that will probably change the Druid quite a bit. So one of the first things that I want to call out on the Druid is it is a healer class. You do have some pretty cool abilities on the front. So you have some damage shields. You have the Oaken regeneration, so they can regenerate. And you have the Bark Skin ability, which gives you health and armor. And then Spirit of Wolf is obviously a big one. The tree skill right here is completely broken, and it can be cast on anyone, including NPCs. Actually, we'll stuck back to town here to kind of show that. So, you know, it came into the game absolutely broken. This will hopefully be fixed tomorrow, but you can take the tree and you can cast it on literally any NPC or PC or in the game other than enemy NPCs. To get rid of it, though, you can just take it off and it does get rid of it. So a lot of people have been kind of trolling with that ability. So I just kind of want to show off how this came into the game, because there's a lot of people that are like, hey, how's the Druid? And they're not actually playing the game. They're just curious how the Druid is. You do also have a Herode pet. You get this, I think, at level 10. So there's the Herode pet there. And then you have only 3 total techniques that the Druid has eventually. These are 2 of them. So you have the Vine Whip, which does some damage, and then your heal or your mana regen type thing. It's not a regen. It just gives you 20% of your mana back. So boom, you use it and 20% mana back. You do have direct damage spells that you can cast. So boom, just direct damage spell line. I think these come every few levels, and they just keep getting a little bit stronger. You have your Talisman, which in my opinion is absolutely broken. So the Talisman, if we can go and find the enemy here, basically allows you to heal whenever you do physical damage on the enemy. This is a completely broken ability and needs to be changed. I think that this should have been on a cleric, not on the Druid. But as you can see here, when you melee attack, it heals you for 13 right now. Every time you melee attack. But if I turn that off and I actually use a Vine Whip also heals me. So it's any type of physical attack. If I were to play a melee class and I use any of my abilities, it heals me. The reason I say this should have been in a cleric ability is because they're supposedly the better healers in the game. Like, they're supposed to be main healing, whereas Druids can do a lot of other things like direct damage spells. They have their dots, that kind of stuff. So the cleric gets a divine favor ability, but it only heals on auto attack, and it heals for far less. You get it at level 18, and it starts out at like 6 healing, and it scales up to like 15 healing by max level. Like it takes forever. I think my friend is level 43, and you only get like 13 healing at level 43 on auto attacks only, whereas the Druid gets it much, much earlier. My Druid is now level 18, and I put this on there, and you can see that I was healing for 13, 14 on literally every single physical melee attack. I think just physical damage attacks, I'm pretty sure. I mean, this is a ranged attack right here, and it still heals you even at range. So that ability came in absolutely broken, in my opinion, and it needs to be changed. Again, I think that the cleric should get that. Does it proc on bleeds, I wonder? I'm not sure if it procs on bleeds or not, but it might. Verdant Fire Seed is kind of an emergency heal for Druids. It is a great heal. However, it is also broken. So it says that it uses 30% of your base mana, which is very, very mana inefficient. But it does give you a shield. So boom, you can see that I get a pretty big shield here. And then when it fades, it does heal you for a good chunk of health. So it's a very, very powerful spell. But again, it does use 30% of your base mana. Now, where it's broken is if you have 0 mana or like 3 mana, you can still cast this spell. So it does not really check your mana at all. It looks at it and says, okay, you have, we have how much mana? Let's see. We have 250 mana right now, and we use it. We used 45 mana. So it uses approximately 30% of your base mana every time you use it. So, but if I have 0 mana, which we can actually spam this ability, which we shouldn't be able to, I'll go over that in a second, but we can spam this ability to where we have 0 mana. Let's get to that here. We can still use this ability when we have basically very little mana. So now you can see now we have 100 mana. Let's get this down a little bit lower because I want to show something here. Let's get it down to here, 60 mana. We're going to use this, and boom, you can see that it used another 45 mana. So it uses a set amount, but you can still see right here 17 mana, and then give it a second, and we'll be able to use it again. Boom, we can now use it again. We only have 18 mana. I can actually take this all the way down to where I have 9 mana, and I can still use it. Boom, used it. Now, if you give this a second, watch it build back up. I have 1 mana. I think it's going to take like a certain amount of time or whatever before it becomes, there it goes. It is now available again after 10 seconds. I guess after the spell goes away, it is now available again. So you can continue to use this indefinitely every 20 seconds. It should not be the case. You should not have the mana to use it. So that is basically a completely broken skill and needs to be fixed. That's like that across the board for any spell, as far as I know, that uses percent-based mana. You do get a dot line. It seems that you only get 1 dot line in this for the Druid, which is the wasp nest, the beehive, etc. And it keeps getting, higher and higher. So you get 1 dot and 1 nuke with the Druid, at least up to level 18. They're not supposed to be damage dealers, but there you go. That's how it is. The Grapevine Snag here is supposed to be a snare. This is another one of those that starts at low level. Where do you get the first one at? Rockvine Tangle here, and then you get Grapevine Snare, I think is the next one, which is the one I'm on now. That ability snares them for so little that you can't even tell that it's snaring them in the beginning. I think snares in this game are just in a really bad place. They just don't feel like they are doing anything. And a lot of mobs, when they run, like especially named mobs, when they take off running, just sprint anyway. So there's no need for a snare. They're immune to snare, or they just are insanely fast and they're going to run off anyway. So basically this spell is absolutely worthless, especially at low levels. At higher levels, it might be a little bit better because it does seem that it does get better as you get higher levels. So the first version of it might have been like a 10% slit snare. This might be a 15% snare. In my opinion, I think the base level snare should be about a 30% snare. And then at the high end, it should be close to like 50 or 60% snare when you get into levels like 40 plus. But that's my opinion. Going to this spell now, this is Herode's Flame. So you can see that Herode has some abilities up here. So we're going to kind of talk about these at the same time. Let's talk about Herode's up here first. So if you right click on Herode, you can open up his menu here, whatever, which is, to see his abilities. And you can actually change out any of these abilities by right clicking them here and then adding them in here. A lot of people are not aware of this, but Herode's Flame is one of those abilities you can put on his toolbar up here if you choose to. It starts out with just these 4 abilities here. So it actually starts out looking like this when you first get him. And people don't realize that you can actually replace one of these and put Herode's Flame on there. Herode's Flame is also a skill down here that you get in your spell book, which is right, where is it at? Somewhere in here. Level 10, Herode's Flame right there. So you can put that onto your spell book. So let's talk about these abilities and then we'll get to Herode's Flame. So Herode's Focus, this puts a buff on you, okay? Only on you. Some people are thinking that these are all like different types of things, which they are different. Anyway, Herode's Focus puts it on you. So let's just do it this way. If you read it right here, it says Herode will amplify several of your abilities. That's why I opened this up. I knew there was a reason for that. The only thing that I can tell that this does is gives you 1 regen. So if I don't have it on me, 0 regen. If I cast it on myself, I now have 1 regen. It doesn't seem to amplify any of my abilities. I don't know what ability is supposed to amplify, but it does not seem to amplify any abilities. If anybody actually knows what abilities that does amplify, please let me know down in the comments below. I would love to hear it. So that is that. This one right here is basically Herode's Gaze, which is the group member effect. So you can cast that on somebody else. It basically does the same thing as Herode's Focus, but on a group member. So you can cast it on them and they gain 1 regen. You can see that by taking it off here, and I can actually cast this on myself. Boom, I gained 1 regen. It's the exact same thing. I tested this out on another character of mine, and that is what it is. Here we have Ward's Shelter. Ward's Shelter is supposed to reduce the threat. I can't really test that. It's very hard to test in this game. It's supposed to reduce the threat on whoever you cast it on and increase the healing that they receive. So this would be really good on a DPS person that's in your party. Do not put this on your tank. Even though it does increase the healing that they receive, it is not good on a tank because it reduces their threat, supposedly. That does seem to work. I did put this on my tank at one point when I was duoing. So when you're duoing, I guess it's probably okay, but it does increase the healing effect. Lasso here is another one of those very, very broken abilities. How it got into the game in its current state makes absolutely no sense, and it was not tested in any way, shape, or form. But basically, Lasso allows you to lasso NPCs if you put them into a tree. So you can see here that I'm going to try to lasso this NPC. It should not lasso them. It did lasso the NPC, and they go right back. But if I turn that character into a tree, boom, it does not move, and now I can lasso it and take it all over the place wherever I want to take it. Again, absolutely broken ability that should not be like that in the game. Not only that, but you can lasso anyone in the game without their consent, and you could pull people off of cliffs. You could pull AFK people into a group of mobs. You could do all sorts of things to terrorize your fellow players. Please do not do that. But again, it should not be put into the game in that case. Moving on to Herode's Flame. That's the last thing we're going to talk about here. Like I said, you can put this onto Herode's bar here. So we're going to actually take away this ability. We're going to put Herode's Flame onto the bar so you can see how that works. This does 2 different things. If it's on the bar and you click it, it is a 2-minute cooldown and it costs 0 mana for your druid. So I can click it. And I think I can even sit down and I could be resting and I could heal somebody else by clicking on that, and boom, I just healed myself and I didn't even have to get up. And it uses no mana or anything, but it's a 2-minute cooldown on Herode, or that Herode can use. Now, if I want to force Herode to use a spell, I can do that, in which case I would, target myself. I would click this ability, and it would force Herode to then heal my target, right? There's a couple of broken things about this ability, though. The first one that got into the game, this is a little bit more, difficult to check, but, should have still been tested. You can target literally anyone as long as they are in your party. You could target them, and they could be anywhere in the zone, and you could click Herode's Flame, and it will heal them no matter where you are and no matter where they are, as long as you're in the same zone. So huge problem there that should not have happened. In addition to that, another issue with Herode's Flame is it's a 1.5 second cooldown, but it is an instant use ability. So when I click it, it instantly tells Herode to cast it, which is a 2-second cast time. However, the cooldown of this ability starts instantly. So I can click it and then wait 1.5 seconds and click it again, and 1.5 seconds and click it again, and nothing ever happens because Herode never finishes his spell. You can now see, however, I'm using my mana every single time that I click it because it's an instant ability for me, and I have to wait for Herode. So this needs to be changed at minimum to a 2-second cooldown, or wait till Herode finishes his cast before the cooldown starts on this ability. So there you go. That is another way that it is broken, working as intended. Exactly. So that is another thing that I wanted to cover. Next up is Gust of Wind. So Gust of Wind is an interrupt. It is the only, to my knowledge, the only interrupt that is on any of the healers. I think that all 3 of the healers should get an interrupt. This one does not have a silence attached to it, and it is a 1-second cast time, which I think is absolutely acceptable. I do not think it should be an instant cast time. I believe even enchanters have a 1-second cast time on their main interrupt. I think that enchanters should have an instant interrupt, whereas clerics and druids and shamans, maybe a half second. There should be some sort of cast time to it. Maybe you could put it at an instant. It really, honestly, it doesn't matter to me, but a lot of people are complaining that it has a 1-second cast time, and it's just like, well, go look at the enchanter, which that is literally the enchanter's job, is to be able to, interrupt and manipulate spellcasters. So that is that. The final ability here, Shadow Vines, is going to reduce the resistances. I haven't really used this ability too much, but apparently it gets resisted quite a bit. Let me see. It didn't get resisted there. It says right on it, spell is rarely resisted, but I did have a friend of mine that says that he was casting this. I think the next version of it, which I don't have right now, he was casting it, and he said that it did have a very, very high resist rate on it. So maybe that was inversed. Again, I don't have that ability, so can't really say if how that works. Other abilities that the shaman has, they do have, or sorry, the druid has, they do have a resurrect ability, so they get it at level 8, and then at 16, they get the 25% res, which is right here, and then at 24, they get the 50% res, so the exact same as the other classes. And then at level 20 right now, you get the tree that you can plant down that does AoE healing, and then I think around the 22 or 24, you get the wolf form. And that's pretty much fills out your entire kit with the druid, and it just kind of grows from there. So that is basically your druid in a nutshell, and how it came into the game when it came in. Hopefully we're going to get an update tomorrow. I might do another overview on the druid, but I wanted to make this kind of as an information thing for those players that are not playing the game or have stopped playing the game and are curious how the druid came into the game. This is the state that it came into, which in my opinion is a very, very bad state. It should have never come into the game in this way. Now, of course, some of that might be fixed tomorrow, and we'll check that out then.